Welcome to Trails of Enchantment, where we travel and discover the diverse cultures and nature of the Borderland region, where we share the stories of the places, the art, and the people that make up this beautiful land. We're here to preserve and celebrate the uniqueness of the past, share a taste of the present community, and engulf the bright future that awaits. Trails of Enchantment. Let's start on the trail. Make sure to grab your flashlight because we're heading into Carlsbad Caverns National Park. Here we'll explore the largest underground chamber in the U.S., send a postcard from the historic lunch site, and learn about the Twisted Sisters and their discoveries.
Hello, I am Ranger Bess Fagerstrom.
Hello, I'm Ranger Eric Koenig.
Hello, I'm Ranger Morgan Bissell.
Welcome
to Carlsbad Caverns National Park
and World Heritage Site.
Goes all the way down to 750. The first elevator shaft was blown in 1931. Since then, we've made many improvements on and renovations on the elevators to what we have today.
Over here behind me is our historic lunch area. Back in the early days when it was only accessible, this cave was only accessible on a guided tour, it was an all-day affair. And so you better believe by the time people got down to the big room, they were real hungry. So we needed to start providing people with food fairly early on. And so the Carlsbad Caverns Trading Company was established and is still hosting concessions in this cave to this day since the early 1900s. So here also in the gift shop of Carlsbad Caverns Trading Company, you have your park brochures available, and then also for purchase they have postcards which can be mailed from underground, and they have a really nifty stamp that says sent from 750 feet below the surface. But you can only get that stamp from inside the underground lunchroom when they are open, so it's a really unique experience that people get to have by visiting the underground lunchroom down here.
And welcome to the big room at Carlsbad Caverns. So this is the largest continuous underground chamber in the United States with the size of 6 football fields or 2 Capitol buildings. It's a mile and a quarter around. It usually takes about an hour and a half to tour it. This is the highlight of our cave. This is what makes us famous. This is what you come to see. So this is the 2.5 miles of self-guided tour. This is what most visitors get to see. But there is much more to the cave. We currently mapped just over 40 miles of cave. Of course, we're sort of at a pause when it comes to exploration. It's always been a balancing act of preservation versus exploration.
Some of our largest stalagmites here in the cave. And these formations are not only impressive to behold on a scale of size, but also on a scale of time. These formations have been growing drip by drip over centuries and even thousands of years. And with each drop of water, a new film of mineral is left behind over time. So it's not only is it impressive to look at, but it's also humbling to be in their presence because they've been around much longer than I have or ever will be. And hopefully they will continue to be here for people to continue to enjoy.
He's been here before.
I was here when I was 9. And everything's bigger when you're 9, but it's still giant. This is beautiful.
It's amazing.
I think I got a buffalo burger at the restaurant.
You did.
I remember
You told me this story about 4 times.
I never had a buffalo burger, but I remember it to this day. And I'm glad my dad got us here, yeah.
The last major discovery that happened in this cave was back in 2018, when several cavers, a group of female cavers, who call themselves the Twisted Sisters, were able to fit themselves, due to their smaller stature, into some smaller passageways that previously thought were unable to be reached. And they found some extra chambers of this cave, places that they named Wriggler's Relief, Lady's Lament, and a location where they found a large series of bat bones, a place that they ended up calling the Tomb of the Sky Bears.
So the giant stalagmite behind me is called the Crystal Spring Dome. It's also referred to as the silent bell because it does have a bit of a bell curve shape to it. You got a big bell dome, and then also the rim of it. As we get closer, you'll notice it kind of builds a shelf out over a pool that's beneath the stalagmite.
In the visitor center, we've got, of course, our lovely information desk where you can ask any ranger about anything about the park. We've got our ticket desk where you purchase those tickets to enter the cave. There's also our bookstore, which is our non-profit store, and our gift shop as well. We also have exhibits where you can learn about the cave and the surface of the Chihuahuan Desert and the Guadalupe Mountains. So you should definitely know what way you want to hike down into the park there, into the cave at least. There are a couple different options, one of which can be pretty strenuous. The main corridor, you're descending 80 stories in a mile and a quarter. We tend to get folks that think they can do that and run into trouble. So we want to make sure everyone's having fun. You want to know whether you are able to do that hike down, or you want to take the elevator and just have a fun, relaxing time instead.
So in addition to being a national park, Carlsbad Caverns also has the honor of being a World Heritage Site under UNESCO of the United Nations. We have been able to hold that honor since 1995. And this means that not only do we belong to the American people, but we belong to all citizens of planet Earth.
In the heart of the Sacramento Mountains sits the Sunspot Solar Observatory. This historic landmark is home to one of the largest active solar telescopes in the world. Here we'll take a tour with Heidi Sanchez, who'll show us around, teach us some astrophysics, and share the beautiful area she calls home.
Hi, my name is Heidi Sanchez, and I oversee the operations of the Visitor Center. I'm also in charge of our guest experience. So I'd love for you to come out and pay us a visit, because not only do we have a friendly staff that does not have astronomy backgrounds, but we do a great job of sharing or conveying to the public what Sunspot is, what we're doing here, and why it's important to be studying the sun. I'd love to take you on a guided tour, so come check us out. I'm standing in front of the John Evans Solar Facility. This building was built in 1952, and it houses a special instrument called a coronagraph. Basically what a coronagraph is, it's creating an artificial solar eclipse. It's blocking out the bright disk of the sun so we can see those faint, wispy outer layers of the sun called the corona. The next telescope we're going to come to is the Richard B. Dunn Solar Telescope. This is our last actively used telescope, and really what you're seeing is only 1/3 of the structure. Let me tell you more when we go inside. Welcome inside the Dunn Solar Telescope. This is the observation room, and this is where all the action happens. This telescope construction began in 1966. It was actually built by the Air Force, and they completed it in 1969. There's 136 feet above ground, but there's another 228 feet below the ground where I'm standing. So in actuality, the whole telescope is over 360 feet long. It's longer than a football field from goalpost to goalpost. Our telescope is not looking at the whole disk of the sun. Most solar telescopes are looking at the whole disk of the sun. Rather, our telescope zooms in on a magnetic structure. We're really looking at less than 1% of the sun's surface in very high definition. And so what happens is, because we're looking at such a small area in high definition, it looks like that image is rotating in your cameras. So what do we do to undo that rotation in our cameras? We literally rotate the whole telescope, all 360 some feet, from top to bottom around to undo that rotation. Now that's a lot of weight that's hanging here. This is over 300 tons of weight when you add the telescope and equipment and electronics. and we suspend it all from a mercury float bearing. There's approximately 130 gallons of mercury at the top of the telescope that suspends the telescope. And by using a mercury float, because mercury is so much denser than water, it makes the telescope not weightless, but frictionless. It just hangs here and glides. In fact, I can show how strong I am. I can literally move 300 tons of weight with my own body strength because of that mercury float. People will pay the admission fee just to check out our scenic over at Best on the Mountain. This whole site was an Air Force base until the mid-70s. And this was a great location, not only because of our high elevation and our dry climate, but White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base were already established in 42 and 45. And so we're in that close proximity to the Air Force Base to be able to provide that infrastructure and support. I'm standing inside the Visitor Center, which is your first stop when you come and visit us. You're gonna meet our fantastic staff that is gonna tell you all you can see and do during your visit. Inside the Visitor Center, where we have our public restrooms, museum, which is interactive, our theater, and fantastic gift shop. And from there, we'll get you checked in where you can walk our beautiful observatory grounds and get a guided tour of the telescope.
My name is Khagendra Katwal. I am a PhD student at New Mexico State University in the Department of Astronomy. I study the sun, trying to understand the magnetic field in the solar atmosphere. Scientists come for the research and training. Engineers admire its innovative technology, and the public enjoys its educational tours, rich history in solar physics, and stunning location in the New Mexico's Sacramento Mountains overlooking the White Sand.
So we do give tours of the telescope, but it's open on limited days and times. So the best way to get that information is you go to our website. It's just sunspot.nmsu.edu. We have a calendar. It'll show the times of the visitor center and the times that you can go inside the telescope and get a guided tour. This is our little hidden gem on the Sacramento Mountains, and I hope to see you soon.
In the town of Mesilla by the Rio Grande is Mesilla Valley Bosque State Park. It spans over 300 acres of restored wetlands and river woodlands that allows visitors an up-close view of the river and its natural surroundings.
Welcome to Mesilla Valley Bosque State Park. My name is Alex Mares. I'm a park ranger interpreter here at Mesilla Valley Bosque State Park. So a bosque is the Spanish word for a woodland or a forest. What we're referencing is the old cottonwood and willow forest that used to be here 250 years ago. Probably the primary reason that this site was desired and acquired and created as a state park was because it is what they would call an ecotone. It's where two very different environments abut or meet, and there's interaction or interplay between these two environments. So in this case, it's riparian wetlands, which have natural features like the cottonwoods, the willows, the cattails, the sedges, very moist, damp soils, a lot of clay soils. And then right up against them will be cactuses, mesquite, grassland, drier soils, and then a slight elevation gain. But you'll have them making right up contact, right up against one another. So these features are really what attracted and enabled the indigenous groups, the Mansos, the Mescalero Apache, the Chiricahua Apache, and others to be able to survive in this environment because you had the best of both worlds. You had the wetland and the riverine, and you had the desert upland. Both of them provided material for shelter, for clothing, for food, for medicine. Our primary focus is to preserve or conserve what is left here from 200, 300, 400, 500 years ago. And then to restore would be our second leg, to restore wherever we can either wildlife or flora or fauna here. Third leg would be recreation education. So we have 2 trails, one's about a mile round trip, the other one's about 2 miles round trip. And the trails then allow for public access to come out and see wildlife, enjoy the nature, go by the river. This locale that we're at is the one area that you can fish with a New Mexico fishing license. You can fish along the river, and to highlight both the flora and the fauna and the unique features here and the history here, both whether it's human or natural. So people can go through the exhibit hall. There's literature and material they can take and interact with that exhibit hall with their families and kids. There's kids activities there, wildlife activities. We have wildlife that comes right up to and in and around our visitor center. We have box turtles that visit us almost daily at this time of year. Road runners come around the building. We have hummingbirds that come around the building. We've even got hawks. We've got a pair of nesting kestrels that return pretty much every year. This is an awesome place. It's getting more and more popularity for photographers, people that like to do nature or wildlife or scenery photography. Birding has always been a long established. We are an IBA, which is Important Birding Area designation by the National Audubon. So we've got a lot going on here for a very small park. We're only 400 acres. Even before you come to Mesilla Valley Bosque State Park, you can already begin to learn about it and benefit from it. If you're a homeschooler, if you're a public school teacher, we have online curriculum that's aligned with state teaching standards in New Mexico from kindergarten through 12th grade. It's called the Lower Bosque Education Guide, and you can access that off of our main website. It's free, it's downloadable as long as you're using it for non-commercial and educational purposes. We encourage you to download it or to print it out. And it's a really good way to prepare your family or your school kids in the classroom or at home before they come out here, and that way they're better prepared to know what to look for, what's here, and to learn about the place. We're only open during the day, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. year-round. We're only closed Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's. Those are the only days we're closed. So we have increased our fees, both for resident and non-residents. But there's some perks also that have come and that are coming for, especially for New Mexico residents. So New Mexico residents now, for 7 months out of the year, there's no day use fee in all our New Mexico state parks. And for only 5 months out of the year do you pay a day use fee. Now, New Mexico residents with a New Mexico driver's license or license plate will pay the old rate, $5 per vehicle, not per person, per vehicle. All other non-residents will now pay $10 per vehicle for day use. It is probably the closest place to both Las Cruces and definitely the town of Mesilla. We're within the town limits, and El Paso, that you can go to and feel like you're way far away from the city. We've got a little bit of elevation gain. We've got a one hill that you can go atop and you get a real nice 360-degree panoramic view of the beautiful Oregon Mountains to the east. There's areas you can be in here where you will almost completely lose sight of anything modern man-made. And you might encounter a mule deer, you might see javelina, you might see a coyote close up, you might encounter snakes or box turtles or spadefoot toads or bullfrogs, other animals, bobcat possibly. And you would think you're way out somewhere, and yet you're that close to urban areas.
The Holocaust Museum in El Paso is the only fully bilingual Holocaust museum in the country, and one of only 13 freestanding Holocaust museums in the U.S. Join us as we learn about the history of the Holocaust and become more aware so that we may combat prejudice and intolerance through education, community outreach, and cultural activities.
So El Paso Holocaust Museum and Study Center was founded in 1984 by Holocaust survivor Henry Kellen, who came to El Paso because his wife had a relative here who helped bring them into the city, helped them get back on their feet after the Holocaust. He and his wife actually did not talk about their experience for decades, but with the rise of Holocaust denial in the late 1970s, early 1980s, Henry decided he needed to bring Holocaust education to our region. We started as just a one-room display with artifacts that were his personal artifacts, books, pictures, and then eventually that grew into the first freestanding El Paso Holocaust Museum in 1996. That location burned down in 2001 to an electrical fire, so they opened this building downtown El Paso in 2008. We get this question all the time of why is there a Holocaust Museum in El Paso? And of course it's the connection to Holocaust survivors, but it also tells a human story. It is not only a story that affects Jewish lives or survivor lives, but it really is a human story of suffering, of overcoming, of surviving. And so that history really resonates with residents here who have their own history of immigration or of dealing with prejudice. And not to oversimplify either scenario, they need their context, of course, but there is that connection, and there's a human connection to a history that is a horrific history, but one that still resonates for us today.
And that's what's wonderful about teaching the Holocaust, is that there's so many different aspects that you can dissect from the Holocaust, morals, understandings that stem from the Holocaust, that we can learn from it as a human being. So although it seemed like it happened many, many years ago, it is something that we can still dissect and still work through it and work as a humanity to restore and become a better community as a whole through these lessons of the Holocaust. It's really hard for students to, especially at such a young age, to really understand the severity of the Holocaust. And through our Dimensions of Testimony, which is our new exhibit, they're able to talk to a survivor. And it's really wonderful because we presented Edith Maneker, who was a kinder transport survivor. So through the tour, they got an understanding of what kinder transport was. And then they had this moment where they're able to then incorporate these lessons into talking to an actual survivor. And it's so wonderful to hear a different perspective when a child asks a question to a survivor and not an adult, because you really get to see these different questions that are presented. Even though they're so simple, the response it generated was so deep.
Yes, so our museum really is a chronological look at the history of the Holocaust. We start with life before the Holocaust for Jews in Europe, what their lives were like, that they were very much a part of Germany, very assimilated in German culture, and then how all of that changes with the rise of Nazism. And so we talk about how Hitler came into power, how life was radically changed, and then from there, that regression into what becomes known as the Holocaust through the Nuremberg laws, propaganda, the Evian Conference, which was really the green light to the Holocaust, the Kristallnacht, which was a very pivotal moment that really began the Holocaust, into the history of the ghettos, and then the final solution. And then one of our final galleries talks about resistance and rescue, liberation from the Holocaust, and then we end in this room, which is the Holocaust Survivor Gallery, our memorial room.
So we do a lot of outreach in that, of course, it kind of encompasses the educational part, where we go and do outreach to local schools, but we also go to the community as well. Through our programs, we not only we talk about the Holocaust, but without trivializing the Holocaust, we try to incorporate different communities, because each community has its own struggles, and the Holocaust can in fact repeat itself, and we've seen these traits over and over happen throughout history, and it's something that we would like to bring awareness to, whether it be through language or through media awareness. These are things that we would like to hopefully correct so that it's not repeated. And through our educational resources, we try to cover that as best as we can.
You can check out our website, elpasoholocaustmuseum.org. We also are on social media, Facebook and Instagram, where we regularly post about events coming up and different ways to access the museum, our programs as well.
Understanding that we have room to grow and that there's always knowledge. There's always this room to grow in terms of education, that we shouldn't become stagnant as a community of not understanding one another, but also not learning about different religions, different cultures, different ethnicities. There is always room to grow as a human being.
All locally produced programming is available online at krwg.org and youtube.com. Thanks for joining us on Trails of Enchantment. We'll see you next time on the trail.